Well, imagine coming home to 8 feet of liquid in your basement, mold growing on the walls of your home, and signs that mice were everywhere in your kitchen.
That's what happens if you're gone for a while, and it's what happened to an area family. The King family moved out of its home in Clayton last year. The family thought that its mortgage lender was taking ownership of the home in a foreclosure. That didn't happen. A year later, the Kings learned they might not have had to leave in the first place. Fox 11's Ben Krumholtz on special assignment tonight explains how the situation between the family and its lender is just the beginning of the mess.
There's literally mold all the way up.
Christina King says this isn't how her home looked when she, her husband, and 8 children moved out 14 months ago.
And you can smell, it's just awful.
King says in 2009, her family was struggling to keep up with mortgage payments because of rising interest rates. That is when her family applied and qualified for the federal government's Home Affordable Modification Program through Bank of America. The modification would drop the family's interest rate from about 10% to around 4%. A year later, in 2010, Bank of America told King she had missed a payment during the loan's trial period.
My husband and I tried to demonstrate we paid it. I kept making the payments because I thought, as long as nobody's saying they're going to foreclose, and I'll just keep paying. I don't want to mess it up now.
In the process, King says the signs kept piling up that the bank was about to take her family's home.
They had attorneys out of Milwaukee that kept serving us papers. We had people walking on the property at least every other week taking pictures of the house, people coming to the door making us fill out something stating that we were still living in the house.
The Kings feared a sheriff's sale was next and decided to move out.
We didn't want it to further traumatize our children by having like a sheriff show up, or we tried to make it normal as possible.
With the bank insisting the Kings missed their payments, the family moved into a rental property in October of 2010.
When you're paying what you're supposed to be doing and you're doing all the stuff, and a good, wonderful man has to then bear the humiliation of losing the home for his family, you know, and the neighbors and kids at school, and it's really awful. It's really awful what was done to us.
And now, a year later, the Kings found out they probably never even had to leave their home. In September, the family received a letter from Bank of America. It reads, "In a previous letter to you, we told you that your loan was not eligible because you missed a trial period plan payment. However, this was incorrect." The letter goes on to say the King's mortgage was approved for the federal program, and the bank was sorry for any inconvenience.
This was our error, clearly.
Bank of America's Senior Vice President Dan Fromm, based in California, talked to Fox 11 about the Kings situation. Fromm says a second review discovered the Kings actually did make all their loan payments.
We recognize the extraordinary and unfortunate difficulty that this has caused for the Kings, and we're committed to make this right.
The Kings were able to return home, only to find it was nothing like they had left it.
The bathroom, the sewage, and the pipes burst.
About 8 feet of water fills the basement, and mold is growing in nearly every room.
That's a board, because there's so much water in the basement that they're bowed up in a teepee.
The house also had a visit from some unwanted guests.
There's mice droppings everywhere.
The Kings hired a service restoration company to evaluate the house. Taking one look, the project manager estimated the cost of repair would exceed the home's value.
Not being maintained.
County health officials say it is a health hazard even entering the home.
You know, certainly anytime there's mold, there's a potential that people that are sensitive and have respiratory issues certainly don't want to be in an environment with mold.
We're going to rely on the experts and the expert opinions in terms of what the best method is to get the home repaired, or should those experts tell us that the better bet is to help the Kings find another comparable home to live in, then we'll pursue that.
It's ruined. There's no way you're cleaning this up.
Bank of America officials say they're still reviewing the King situation. We asked bank officials if this mess inside the King's home could have been avoided if the family just stayed living there instead of moving out.
I think there's some question yet, again, as we're piecing things together in terms of what prompted them to leave the house. Our records don't indicate that the house was ever into foreclosure. We certainly never pursued a foreclosure sale, which would usually preempt the need for someone to actually leave the property.
While the bank says it never pursued a foreclosure sale, the Kings say the signs were clear to them.
The locks were changed, and there's a notice on the door. So clearly you did something.
Bank of America officials say they'll focus on resolving the situation.
Here you've got refuse
that includes working with the family to pay back money the Kings spent moving from their house.
At this point, what would be ideal is that they would fix everything, and if that means I get a new house that's safe and livable, I believe that I have more than every right to have that.
Bank officials agree. They say the next step is to remove the water from the home. Then it will become clearer if the bank will be able to salvage it. Otherwise, they say they'll find the Kings a new home. In Clayton, Ben Krumholz, Fox 11 News.
And in the meantime, the Kings say they have been living in church-owned housing in Oshkosh.